All right, everybody. It's me, Corey DeAngelis, and my co-host, Chip Rogers, CEO of Americans for Fair Treatment. This is the Red Pen Podcast, powered by Americans for Fair Treatment. If you want to find a way to leave your public sector union, teachers were on your side. You can go to mydues.mychoice.org. And I think, Chip, we just saw that over 3,000 public sector employees have contacted AFFT in the past 10 months alone for help with getting out of their public sector union. That's a big win.
Yeah, it's a big win. First, just think about the families themselves. I mean, you get to keep the money they earn, and it's not going to all these purposes that might be opposed to what they actually believe as American citizens. And so it's good in that respect. I think, some of the things that we fail to mention occasionally, Corey, is that it also should serve as a force to keep unions honest. It doesn't matter whether you're a union or you're selling hamburgers somewhere. If you're not making sure that your customer, and in this case, the union member, is happy with the services you're providing, they should have the opportunity to get those services elsewhere or get them not at all. And so in this particular case, people are opting out. They may find other ways to satisfy whatever needs they have, but it should be keeping the union honest.
Yeah, school choice is competition for the districts to improve. Teacher choice is competition for the union bosses to improve. I was actually just on Newsmax right before we started this live stream, and Congress is actually investigating Randy Weingarten. We'll talk about this later, but Congress is investigating Randy Weingarten for apparently using $1.4 million in union dues coming from teachers' paychecks to promote her book, calling conservatives fascist. And the best she could do was basically copy my book cover. It looks exactly the same. We'll get into that. We'll get into the national education.
I got to ask you, we both have friends in Congress. We've got to get one of the members of Congress to ask her where she got the book cover idea from.
I know they better press her on that. We'll feed those questions to some of our buddies, but yeah. And they also need to investigate her for using her union's pension funds to bully Target into opposing immigration enforcement. So I think that'll be the next step. They should investigate that as well. But we'll also talk about the National Education Association's business items that they were contemplating this past week in Denver, Colorado. All that and more. We also have a special guest today. His name's Norton Rainey. He's the CEO of ACE Scholarships. They've been doing this for a quarter of a century now, running the scholarship programs in different states. And they're in a great position with this new nationwide private school choice program that passed in the big, beautiful bill. They're ready to go. But before we get into this conversation with Norton and these crazy stories with the NEA and Randy Weingarten, we have a new kind of report and also data that we're going to be housing at the Americans for Fair Treatment website. And this is actually some really cool stuff. I'll bring it onto the screen, but you'll be able to look into your state, look into different unions. And the main thing that it's looking at is, where do your dues go? We know that the taxpayers fund the public school system and other public services. And then we know that money goes to in some part, people's members' paychecks, but a lot of it is taken out of their paychecks and it goes towards political activities and so on and so forth. And the Americans for Fair Treatment, we're starting to look into, the first state that we released is Pennsylvania. And, you can go onto the website and check this stuff out under our news releases. There's snapshots. I'll just pull up the snapshot real quick. The Pennsylvania State Education Association, for example, that is the largest teachers union in the state. It's the state affiliate of the NEA. Well, this report shows that they funneled in the most recent filing over $30 million towards the National Education Association. And overall, only about 15% of their dues went towards representing teachers. That is just wild. That means 85% is being spent on not representing teachers. And, this also goes into other other teachers unions and other types of unions. For example, the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers, that is the local affiliate of Randy Weingarten's union. Less than 0.5% goes towards representing teachers. That's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, boy, so many thoughts come to mind. First, I want to thank the team here at AFFT for putting all this together. As you mentioned, Corey, and you just showed on the screen there, this is the first state. We're going to have many more states. So please go to our website, afft.org, and check it out. You can see all this information. Some really good work was done here. And we encourage people to share it because information and the truth should be our friend. It should be the friend of teachers. Frankly, it ultimately should be the friend of the unions because they're going to have to be held accountable if they're going to continue to represent people. But this is alarming when you look at the numbers of where this money is going. It's almost like if you went to a lawyer and you said, hey, I need you to represent me on my case. And then you find out that lawyer spent, 50% of that money that you gave him giving to a political opponent that you don't agree with. Another 15%, went to going out and having fancy dinners and going on vacation. And then another, 15% went to whatever overhead. And then you look at what's left over, and just a few pennies actually went to representing you in your case. This is really the same thing. And it's happening on a hundreds of millions of dollars scale across the country, where these poor teachers that are working so hard in the classroom, doing a job that most people don't want to do, taking care of children, educating children. And then after we pay them not a lot of money, then they give that money, or it's taken from them by the union and just wasted on all sorts of things that have nothing to do with the classroom, nothing to do with the students, and really nothing to do with the teacher.
Yeah, look, this is just crazy. I mean, I know it's kind of small for listeners so I'll just read some of these off, but Randy Weingarten's Pittsburgh affiliate teachers union in Pennsylvania, 99.9% of their political spending went towards Democrat causes. 99.9%. Do you think 99.9% of teachers are Democrats? I don't think so. And even if they are, maybe they don't want their money that comes out of their paychecks to go towards political candidates. And just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean you agree with all of the political funding going towards a Democrat in an election. There's primary elections. Maybe the union likes a certain Democrat and you like a different type of Democrat. The Pennsylvania State Education Association, the NEA affiliate, their treasurer is paid $366,000 a year, nearly 5 times the average of the Pennsylvania teacher salaries. I mean, this is just an eye-popping numbers, and I'm glad that AFFT is putting this together because this is a lot of research to put together, and for it to be in one page, just a quick one pager, nice graphics. This is a great addition to the AFFT website. Here's some other bullet points that you had in your article today, Chip. The Philadelphia Federation of Teachers sent 43% of its budget to affiliate unions, and that's the NEA or the American Federation of Teachers and others. And they had more than 61% of the budget flow to affiliate payments, officer compensation, and employee benefits rather than the direct member services. It's just when you start to follow the money, it becomes a lot more obvious why teachers are starting to leave their unions in droves. And you can do that with Americans for Fair Treatment if you'd like. If you want to join our side instead, you can go to myduesmychoice.org. They can't retaliate against you anymore. There's red state, blue state, you cannot be forced to pay union dues anymore in the public sector.
Yeah, and take that money, invest it in your child's education, maybe their college, put it into one of the new Trump accounts that are out there, or any.
That's right. I've got one coming. I've got a baby boy coming in October.
That's pretty awesome, Corey. We are very happy for you, and I'm sure you're going to have him with one of those accounts, and hopefully he gets one of those shares of SpaceX as well.
That's right. We have one more story before we bring in Norton Rainey, and there's a bill that passed the Senate in North Carolina. I think this is really cool. It's to ingrain in the Constitution making North Carolina a right-to-work state. And so this already passed the Senate, 30-16 vote. It requires a 60% vote in each chamber to do this kind of constitutional amendment in North Carolina. It now sits in the House. The House Democrats control exactly 40% of the chamber. The rest, it's mostly Republicans, but they do have 2 independents in the North Carolina House as well. The North Carolina House, if you recall, we talked about on a recent episode, they voted to overturn the veto, override, sorry, I'm getting the words wrong. Override is the formal word. The veto of Josh Stein, a Democrat. He vetoed a bill to opt in to President Trump's nationwide school choice program, and they overrode it. The 2 independents joined the Republicans to do so. And so we'll see if they do this as well. This bill does not go to the governor because it's a constitutional amendment. It goes straight to the ballot. But you still need that 60% threshold to be met. So maybe that's why there's a little bit more of a kind of a holdup in the House, because you need 2 independents to come along. The Senate already passed it. What's your take on this, Chip? Could you give us a little bit of what do we mean by right to work state?
Well, first of all, North Carolina is already a right to work state, and I'll get into how that has played out for them. But in the most basic sense, if you have a right to work, it means you can go out and get a job and provide for yourself and your family without being required by law to join a group. In this particular case, it is join a union. But there are folks who oppose right to work, and I would just love to hear their rationale of how you can look at an employee in the face, or just look at any American in the face and say, you know what? You're not allowed to go get a job and provide for yourself and your family unless you do what we tell you to do. Mm-hmm. You have to check this box. You have to join this group. You have to be part of this union. I mean, that is just so anti-American. And so anyone who's not for right to work, really, frankly, that's not very American. I mean, you in this country as an individual, you should be allowed to go get a job and take care of yourself without having to join some group that the larger population may want you to join. And by the way, the other Josh, the governor of Pennsylvania, just posted, as long as I'm governor of Pennsylvania, it will never be a right to work state. So he never believes in freedom. He never believes in the individual. It's just such terrible, I would almost call it class warfare, is what these guys play. And it's really a disgrace. I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, people in Pennsylvania, people in North Carolina, everywhere should be able to go get a job if they want a job and not have to join any group. Now, how has it played out for North Carolina? Well, you can see, I just saw the CNBC business rankings came out today. And while I don't necessarily agree with all of the criteria they use, I think population change and business change is the best criteria. There are companies that are leaving, terrible environments like California to move to Texas. That's the best gauge. But even if you use their own numbers, it shows North Carolina is one of the most business-friendly states. And what has that meant? Because I think this is really, really important. When your state is business-friendly, it means there are more jobs. Then come more people. Then comes more wealth. And then comes more opportunity for everybody in your state. Things only get better when you have more economic activity in your state. And so right to work has worked exceptionally well in places like North Carolina. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to put this into the Constitution and protect something that has done so much good for the people of your state.
And it looks like North Carolina is expected to gain electors because of people moving to North Carolina. States like California, they're losing electors because it's too expensive to live there. They don't have school choice. One thing that I notice is all these states that are expected to gain electors, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and all the rest, they all have universal school choice programs, except for Georgia. Georgia has a step in the right direction, an education savings account. It is a pretty good form of school choice, but not as great as the other six states that have universal school choice programs. And if you look on the flip side, none of these states none of these states have universal school choice programs that are expected to lose. Some of them have, some forms of school choice, like Pennsylvania has some limited tax credit scholarships and stuff. But otherwise, people are voting with their feet to places where it's easier to raise a family.
Also on that map, and this part of the map is perfect. Every state in green is right to work. Every state in red is not right to work.
There you go.
That was the whole story. Businesses don't want to go to anti-business states. It's pretty simple.
and maybe North Carolina will join the club with its constitutional amendment to enshrine it in their constitution, not just have it as the law of the land. And so, look, we have more stories to get to later, but we have a great guest. We want to make sure we get him in for as long as we can on this episode. I'm just going to bring up his latest at Fox News. You probably saw it. It was published on the 4th of July, Independence Day. America's next 250 years begin in the classroom. So everyone, let's welcome Norton Rainey. He's the CEO of ACE Scholarships. How's it going, Norton?
Corey, it's going great. What an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. This is a long time coming. We've been talking about getting you on. You've been on flights. It's really hard to book you. We're glad that you joined us today. Could you give our listeners a little bit of your background and also your time at ACE Scholarships and what ACE Scholarships has done over the past quarter century?
Sure, happy to do so. Corey, I think the only guy that's logging more miles on an airplane and hotels is probably you, my man.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll be gone all day tomorrow in Los Angeles. I'm coming back home though, same day.
I know you are. Well, you know what? You and I have been linking arms for a long time on school choice, and you and I absolutely understand that it's probably the most important thing we can do in our country. So Norton Rainey been at ACE Scholarships now for almost 25 years in 2027. And when I began 25 years ago, we had these 4 remarkable founders, these business leaders that saw a disparity in education in Denver, Colorado. Gang violence was quite high. And what they noticed is that there was a evolving trend, and that was that the wealthy were doing quite well. Middle income parents were moving to neighborhoods where good public schools existed, and their kids were doing well and they were flourishing, graduating and going to college. And I would say living the American dream because they were educated. But poor families were stuck in their government assigned zip code and they weren't doing so hot. And they started seeing a trend, and that was that these families were doing very poor. And at that same time, one of our heroes, the late, great John Walton, had launched a children's scholarship fund. And he was a big proponent of school choice. It's where he put almost all his money. And he challenged these 4 business leaders. And he said, hey, listen, if you guys put money behind an effort in Colorado, I'll match you dollar for dollar. And that was really the founding of ACE. And over the next 3 years, we helped out thousands of kids achieve their dreams, go to schools of their choice, and do things that low-income kids really were not doing in Denver. They were actually very happy, and their parents were thrilled because they knew their kids were now prepared academically. And as a result of our work in Denver, we had some people around the country that took notice of what we were doing. And that was really the impetus for our growth nationally, which went from 1 to 13 states. 4 of our 13 states, we manage state tax credit programs. And we couldn't be more thrilled about the future in our country with the Education Freedom Tax Credit.
Could you get into a little bit about how that works, the nuts and bolts? I got to mention to everybody, you were at the White House to talk about during School Choice Week these wins when it came to the nationwide school choice program that passed in the big beautiful bill. I think we were probably only at like 20 states at the time. Now we have 31.
Right. Well, first, what an honor to be at the White House. And I would say even more so, how cool is it that we have an administration that is embracing education reform in our country? Whether a child is going to a government assigned school that's working for them, whether it's not, and they have access now to a private school or homeschool, we are freeing up resources which will enable parents in this country to have real choice. And so it was an honor to be with Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, and also a follow-up event at the White House. But Corey, as you know, it was wonderful chatting about the work we do, but there was one person who really stole the show that day, and that is one of our ACE parents, a beautiful woman from Dallas, Texas, named Greta Alexander. And when she shared her story along with her daughter, she said, my daughter Miracle is lucky to be graduating from her private school, and we thank ACE Scholarships for making that possible. But as you know, she also paused and said, this was made possible because many years ago, I lost my older son. He was in a public school and he got involved in the wrong crowd and he made some very bad choices and he eventually lost his life. But she said, I really do believe if he would have been in an environment that was a better school with better character and values, that my son would not have committed suicide and he would be educated. And so Greta's story was really, I would say, the essence of what we do is we say to parents, we believe in you and we know that you are the best decision maker in your child's education, not the government. And that's what I tried to do in my article in Fox News, is really outline the beauty of America. In America, and we all know this, we thrive through capitalism and entrepreneurism, where people can use their God-given talents to do whatever they want to. But if we strip them of that opportunity because they're not educated or forcing them a certain school, that is not the American way. And that's why we are all fighting so hard. And that's why we all are applauding the future of school choice in America.
You know, Norton, if I could jump in here, I've been a warrior on this cause for 20 some odd years. I don't know if you were around when we passed it in Georgia way back in the day. Myself and Representative David Cassis passed the tuition tax credit. I want to say it was 2005. So I've been fighting this forever, but it's the one issue where there is legitimately not a valid argument on the other side. There is none. I've talked to, tens of thousands of parents in my life, and I know you experience this as well. There is no parent who wants fewer choices for their child. You can never walk up to a parent and say, you know what, you can have 10 choices for where your child's educated, or one that the government tells you to go to based on your U.S. postal mailing address. Which do you want? Like, no parent wants the system that doesn't give their child more opportunity. And so, you scratch your head sometimes and you say, wow, if we theoretically should have all the parents on our side, why isn't this universal everywhere? And it's just a reminder that the forces of evil in this particular case, it's the teachers union, will fight you tooth and nail because they don't want to lose control of their system. And I know it can be frustrating, but thankfully people like yourself have been doing this for a quarter of a century and saving a lot of lives of kids who deserve this.
Well, I would also go on to say as well, too, that Alex Cranberg, one of our founders, a great man and great entrepreneur, has always had this great line. He said, I've never met anyone who believes in school choice, who changes their mind and thinks it's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. But I've met plenty of people who don't believe in school choice, and they eventually understand the merits of school choice. So to hear you say that in Georgia, you were fighting for a school choice bill, everyone around the country, every legislator, thank you for your service. Thank you for being heroes and taking a stand and fighting for what we know is right. And we know it's right. School choice, it's not a hypothesis. This is not something we hope will work. After more than 3 decades of the school choice movement, we have so much research at a national level showing that when kids are given choice, they do well. And today's scholarships, most of our kids are coming in 2 years behind academically. See, our pundits like to say that the reason why we're doing well is because we're creaming the crop and we're taking the best students. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We know in our research, our kids are far behind, and there's a reason why their parents want them to go to a different school, because they're struggling academically. But even more so, the number one reason why our parents are choosing to put their kids in a private school is because they're being bullied. They are in an environment where they're being bullied, and it's not a good environment for them, but also academically, they're not doing well. But we research the heck out of our kids. And what we love is that after 2 years, we're catching them up academically, and then they thrive and they flourish. And depression and anxiety and suicide are way down for kids who have access to good schools. What a beautiful thing that they had the chance to actually live the American dream, knowing that they're coming from a poor neighborhood. And what we're also seeing, those same kids, when they graduate and are being educated, are going back to their neighborhoods, and they're serving as role models for their communities and saying, let's get more kids into a great school, just like me, because I was lucky.
I actually found one of the clips from Greta Alexander, the mom that you referenced earlier, an ACE Scholarships mom. She was at the White House, right, during a Black History Month reception with President Trump, and she got to tell her story, her school choice story. I think she was also at CPAC as well. We were on a panel together. Yeah, we were on a panel together at CPAC. So Greta's doing great things, and I wanted Norton, you to shift over and kind of talk about what this op-ed was about America's next 250 years belong in the classroom, about how this is important, not just for the individual kids, but our entire country.
Well, by the way, with Greta Alexander, when she wrapped up her speech, the president is standing just to her right, and she was actually controlling the stage. That's what I love about Greta. And when she was finished, she looked over at the president and said, Mr. President, give me a hug. I mean, it was wonderful. She just owned the environment there. But no, we love Greta, and she would be the first one to say that my child miracle is very lucky. And so when I talked about the next 250 years in our country, America is the greatest country on the planet by far. There is not even a close second place. And I say that from the standpoint running a nonprofit. A nonprofit is successful by the money they raise. America is such a generous place because people who have had the privilege and opportunity to make money love to give what they make and support those who don't have as much. It's the American way that we believe in everyone. And you don't see that as much in other countries. And that's what's defined America. But beginning in the late 70s, when we created the Department of Education, which at the time perhaps sounded like a good idea, America ranked probably in the ballpark of number 4 or 5 in the country or in the world compared to other countries. But once the Department of Education was created and we started pouring massive amounts of money and the union strength grew, education over the last 4 decades has gone down very significantly. And we see kids right now that can't read, they can't write. Depression, anxiety, and suicide are at an all-time high. And one thing I did acknowledge in my article is that we see more kids than ever who are reliant on the government for help. And you know what? I get it. I don't think it's right. I think they should be free to do what they want. But I understand when you look at inflation and the cost of living right now, we have young kids who aren't making very much money and they're not educated, which means they must be reliant on someone else for help. And so the only way that they're going to be free and independent of the government and to live the lives they want, to get married, to have children, to have a great job, is to be educated. And that's what this all is about, is making sure that every child can succeed, but even more so, that America can succeed. We did a study 2 years ago, and we asked Americans, what are the issues that you care the most about? And education was number 6 on their list, behind immigration reform, healthcare, crime. Hey, listen, I know these are really important issues and we need to focus on them. But as we know, if you're educated, you're not going to have to rely on those issues nearly as much because now kids are going to have the ability to succeed in their life. So that's really what this is all about, is investing in America through education. And we know it begins by letting parents have the freedom to choose what's right for them.
I see. I've been putting out this map. So the red states here, for listeners, Norton knows this already. These are the states that have opted into President Trump's nationwide school choice program. The ones in gray, they've either said, nah, we're not going to do it, which is only a couple of them that have actually come out and said that. But the others are ones that, in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro's over here like, I got to get more information. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it. They have until the end of December to make a decision. Norton, do you think all the states will come along at some point? Is there a reason why could you go over maybe what Jared Polis said and why he thinks all states will probably come along, or they'd be crazy not to? And why do you think some states were quicker to move than others? I guess that's a good question.
I'm absolutely astonished that not all states have already opted in for the credit, because it's a win for education, not just private or homeschool families. It's a win for public education as well, because the credit enables students in public schools to benefit and actually use that money that's being raised for education services, before and after school programs and technology. So Governor Polis in Colorado, I really admire him a whole lot. As a Democratic governor, he's actually been a supporter of ACE for well over 20 years. And so we've known each other, and we've seen firsthand his support of charters and private education in Colorado, in addition to traditional public schools. When he came out and said, I believe in the education freedom tax credit, and I'm opting in the state of Colorado, he knew it was a win for children, not policy, not partisan politics, not bureaucracies. And I really admire him. And I also admire Kentucky and New York, 2 other Democratic states as well, that have now opted in. Of course, we know in Kentucky it was done the hard way, but I really admire the governor in New York for coming in, opting in right away and saying, we believe in this as well. So to answer your question, we know this, every state needs to opt in. I think as more people understand the benefit of the tax credit and that it benefits everyone, not just private schools, Democratic governors really have no reason why they shouldn't be opting in. And also people need to recognize that this is not a diversion of public dollars from public schools. This is money that must be raised privately. But the beauty is when that money is raised, the person who gives that money receives a dollar for dollar federal tax credit up to $1,700. And so you get that money back next year. But this is above and beyond any taxpayer dollars that are going to our public schools. But Corey, I'd be curious from your standpoint as a guy who's been doing this a long time, what do you think? Do you think that Democratic governors will also come on?
I think at some point all 50 states will, just like the 21 drinking age. It took 4 years for all states to choose 21. That was tied to federal highway money, so it's a little different, but the incentives are similar, right? Jared Polis pointed out that, well, if I don't opt in, that money can flow out of state from Colorado to Texas and Florida. Why in the world would he be on board with that? It makes no sense. I think the only reason why you have some states that are kind of holding out as long as possible is because you have stronger teachers unions in these states for the most part. And the teachers unions think this is a bad thing because, I don't know, maybe because Trump did it. Because what you're saying is right, Norton. I mean, the public schools can raise more money for themselves. Why in the world would Randy Weingarten be against this? She's not just, on the fence about it. She wrote a letter with Becky Pringle to all of the Democrat governors urging them not to opt in. And she went beyond that. They said in their letter that, oh, by the way, if you opt into this, it's against the Democrat Party platform to support school choice. And so it was a veiled threat. If you opt in, we have political muscle and funding to threaten you in a primary. So I don't see why they would do that. I think it's just they don't want to give President Trump any victories.
No, but Corey, I also go back to many years ago. Most people have heard this, but when Al Shanker was the head of the unions, I believe it was in the 80s, there's a famous line where he said, when our children begin paying union dues, we'll begin caring about those kids. And so the unions have always been really good. In fact, frankly, they do a phenomenal job. They're really good at protecting the interest of their teachers and adults, but they're not good at protecting the interest of our children, our greatest asset, because that's not their job. So the unions, under a veiled threat, as you so eloquently said, that's not their job to care about our kids, but they're also missing the point here. If they really cared about education, they would be enthusiastically supporting this bill because they know it's good for children and they know it's good for public schools. But there's a fear factor there because they recognize they're not doing the job they need in many cases. And
what's crazy is this would benefit the teachers too. I mean, they could raise money for performance pay if they wanted, or after school programs for the kids. You can hire more teachers to do that. You can use the money for tutoring and stuff, and the public school teachers can go tutor after school if they'd like. So it doesn't make sense right now.
Look, I think we need to kind of pledge this to myself. I'll never let an opportunity go by to remind people what this is really about. They always argue about the money. So this bill, this law takes care of that. This is not taking any money, as you eloquently pointed out, from the government-run schools at all. In fact, it could be adding money to them. So it's not about the money. This is, as we all know, if you've been in this fight long enough, this is about power and control, and that is it. It's always about power and control. They will go to the ends of the earth to prevent a student from leaving the government-run education system. So any plan, even if it economically benefits them, that would allow a child to escape their system, they are going to be opposed to, and they're going to use all their political force to do it. So keep that in mind. Imagine if you're a governor and a parent walks up to you and says, now, wait a minute. If I donate to this cause and get a tax credit for it, and all my neighbors donate for a cause and get a tax credit for it, my money goes out of state. It can't even help my own child. How are you going to answer that as a governor? I guess you're just going to say, well, the teachers union told me to jump and I asked how high. That's basically how they operate in blue states.
And also, I think it is important to note, too, that's a really great example that you still can raise money in those states there. What a headline that will be. Money being raised in California, going to support students in Texas. Mm-hmm. I don't think residents will appreciate that too much. And eventually, that's why I do believe all states will sign up. Power to the parents. The parent revolution, Corey, is that when parents are fired up by other kids around the country benefiting, they're going to say, why are they benefiting in 31 states, or how many states are signed up? And why are we still continuing to fail our children. But here's a cool thing, though. I really do believe that the unions and public schools are at odds with each other. They're not connected because we see firsthand at ACE Scholarships that many public schools are actually signing up to partner with us and allow ACE to administer their program. So they're actually proceeding knowing they want to be a part of this program, and they see the dollar signs and how they can benefit kids, and they want to raise money. So they're not saying the same thing unions are. There are many wonderful charters in traditional public schools that will either be starting their own scholarship granting organizations, or they want the help of an organization like ACE to help them administer it. So I want to just say there's a lot of good being done around the country. And it's not just the unions who eventually, or I should say, every state who will sign up. I think ultimately over time, every public school will sign up.
Mm-hmm.
It would be foolish not to.
Actually, it occurred to me while you were saying that. I just figured out how we make this happen. This is actually really simple. As soon as the money starts flowing and California is not part of it, all we need is Governor DeSantis to post on X and thank Governor Newsom.
Yes.
For that'll happen immediately.
Yeah. Norton, I have one more question for you. You were in D.C. at the Treasury meeting at the roundtable with the rulemaking process. Do you have any updates for listeners who weren't tuned in to, what they clarified at that meeting?
Well, for those who are not totally familiar with rulemaking, is Treasury needs to make final rules for the Education Freedom Tax Credit in 2027. And we had a meeting about 1 month ago, and Secretary McMahon is leading the charge. She's doing a fabulous job. I really commend her. But in late September, we should have final rules, which means every American, every school, every scholarship granting organization will have absolute clarity on what this program means. In the meantime, what we're saying to people who are looking at this program is you still need to be considering how it is that you can get to work raising money in 2027, because this program will happen. Rulemaking is important, but rulemaking will not get in your way from raising money and putting that money to work. So I want to continue reminding people that you've got to get ready. And at ACE Scholarships, we're ready to lead the charge at a national level. We're thrilled about that. We have a remarkable team, and we've invested over $10 million in technology so that we can seamlessly serve our schools and organizations and our parents, and making sure that we really help them realize the American dream. And as you two know, it can be very complex. It's like a health savings account in many cases. We're doing the same thing for a technology platform, is we're making it very simple for everyone to access this money, and we can administer the program through ACE Scholarships and the investments we've made. So we're thrilled, but more importantly, I can't wait for America to be transformed. I think our greatest days are ahead, and I believe this bill single-handedly is going to transform America and make sure we remain the greatest country on the planet.
Amen.
All right. Thanks so much, Norton. We're running short on time, but where could people follow you? Where should they go to check out what's going on with ACE Scholarships? How can they support ACE Scholarships?
Thank you, Corey. Go to educationfreedom.org or acescholarships.org. And on our sites, you have the ability to learn more about ways you can engage. What you should do is sign up right now, because we want to come along your site and help you fulfill that $1,700 donation next year. Your money will remain in your state. You can actually allocate that money in your state, and we'll make sure it does. And for schools and partner organizations who may be listening, we would love nothing more than to share that image right there of our product. It's called Empowered. It's our technology platform. And we would just be very excited to come along your site and serve you and make sure that you keep doing the great work you are.
All right. Thanks, Norton. Everybody go to acescholarships.org. You can check out how you can get that dollar-for-dollar credit with the Nationwide School Choice Program. Thanks, Norton. I wish I could sit here talking to you for 3 hours, but we're coming up on time. So thank you so much, Norton. Thanks, ACE, for all the work that you guys are doing for a quarter century now, helping kids get a better education.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Keep up all the great work.
Thanks, Norton.
All right. Thanks, Norton. All right, Chip, we got a lightning round with a couple of more stories. We have just a few minutes, but here's the one that we've all been waiting for, a lot of people. I found the NEA business items from this year. They hide them every year, but basically the main takeaway here is, there's a bunch of crazy ones. I looked through them all so that you didn't have to, people listening. but basically none of them had anything to do with education. One of them called to dedicate $5.2 million in teachers' union dues for Trump's removal and impeachment before the November 2022 election. You don't have to take my word for it. Well, you can on my Twitter account, I guess, but I put the business items out there. They'll call for the impeachment, conviction, removal of Donald Trump from the U.S. presidency. They'll call for a national march on Washington to remove Trump before the midterm elections. And they wanted to spend $5.2 million, more than that, of teachers' paychecks on this lunacy. I mean, it ultimately got pulled. I just found out yesterday it got pulled. Most people wouldn't know that, but I found a way to find all of their business items and what happened to them. But this one stayed around. This one calls for educational reparations. What the heck are educational reparations? I don't even know what to tell you. But it seems like it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act, dividing people based on immutable characteristics like race and giving them more money or less money based on the color of their skin, which is just absolutely crazy. It's a way to go backwards. And they passed this one, or they at least moved it to the next committee. I believe they adopted it, but there's a whole bunch. I mean, and I'm sure you looked through all of them already, Chip, but they called for universal health care. I mean, what is that? They called for gender equity and to spend over $300,000 on getting gender equity in the curriculum. I don't know what that is. And so it's just nonstop. And yeah, we don't have enough time to go over all of it, but what's your take on the NEA business items?
You know, it's every day we try to remind teachers and anybody in public sector work that they can opt out of their union. And some of the unions do a pretty good job representing their members. Police unions oftentimes do a great job. So do firefighters unions. And if that works for them, that's great. But boy, the teachers union seems to make it so easy for us. Like we don't even have to point out their absurdities. They do it for us on a daily basis. They just put them on a platter and say, here's the crazy thing we're thinking about doing today. And it's just a vivid reminder to everybody, you do not have to fund this. Right. You do not have to have this taken out of your paycheck that you work so hard to earn. Just exercise your constitutional rights, get out of this nonsense, remind the union, if they'll stay out of politics, maybe you'll join again, but let's keep union dues out of politics, because when you allow it into politics, it goes to an extreme like this. These examples are not meant only to heighten awareness. I mean, this is an everyday thing for these people. You got to get the money out of politics.
Yeah, so the way you can do that is myduesmychoice.org, and you can join us instead of Randy Weingarten and Becky Pringle, particularly if you disagree with all the crap that they've been passing at their conventions. But then also, the other headline this week is that Randy Weingarten is being investigated by Congress for apparently spending over $1.4 million on her book project. And all she basically did was waste that money she could have done a better job and been more creative with her book cover instead of just copying mine. But she had a response to this on Facebook. And she said, here, I'll pull it up. Her response was, oh, you know, they're just picking on me. And then if you look deep into here, you can see she says, I published Why Fascists Fear Teachers, the book that she calls conservatives fascists, basically, in partnership with the union, with half of the proceeds going to the union. What does that tell you? That means that the other half went to her. So she didn't respond and say, oh, no, I didn't profit off of this book and use member dues. She didn't say anything about the $1.4 million, but she did say, oh, well, half of the money went towards the union. Well, where did the other half go? It went towards enriching herself. And so I think she's in hot water. I don't know why she would have responded like that, basically an admission of guilt, but doesn't look good for Randy Weingarten. Congress put out a press release as well. It's the Education and Workforce Committee. They sent her a formal demand letter, basically, to send over all the information about what union dues were spent and squandered on her vanity project, her book. And I will say, I got to do a humble brag here, Chip, not just the copying of the book cover, but one thing I want to point out is I was the first person, September of 2025, to start to get a whiff of this. I had just seen one. Freedom Foundation dug a little deeper once and then went down the rabbit hole. But I looked at the LM2 reports. I looked at the reason I said, what the heck, is that there was a PR firm that promoted Randy Weingarten's book, and they bragged about how they supported her book hitting the bestseller list. And they bragged about it on Facebook. I went and found that, on the LM2 report, this same firm that bragged about, we're so proud of our friend Randy Weingarten for the release of her book. We all supported this book. You go to the LM2 report, the same Feldman Strategies in the past year had received over $170,000. So it looks like Freedom Foundation saw that, dug a little deeper, and said, it's not just $170,000. It looks like it was like $1.4 million. And now we have Congress digging into this. And I'd say, look, we covered this in a previous podcast, but she also leveraged pension funds from her union to bully Target to come out against immigration enforcement. That smells like a breach of fiduciary duty, and Congress should ask about that if they do a hearing on this, or maybe even call an additional hearing to get to the bottom of that, because that these both seem like pretty problematic things, especially when Randy Weingarten makes over $500,000 a year already. And so why does she need $1 million from the union to promote her book? She could have done it herself.
She could have done it herself. What's shocking to me is the lack of discipline, and not, I assume, now this is me assuming, that she didn't talk to a lawyer before she posted that response, because no good lawyer would have said, go out there and admit that half the money actually went to you. Like,
it wasn't all of it.
Right. Yeah. Like, I didn't steal all the money. I only stole part of it. I mean, that's not a defense in the court of law. So kind of foolish on her part. I'm surprised she didn't have a personal attorney say, hey, don't be saying that on X. But nonetheless, this is just a recurring pattern for someone who believes she's above the law. I mean, you pointed out, which may actually be even worse, because the damage it can do to all of her members, what she's doing with their pension fund, politicizing it, and not seeking out the greatest return for her members, as is her fiduciary responsibility, and the fiduciary responsibility of everyone who oversees a pension fund. So whether she's wasting other people's money, whether she's wasting her own, it's just a continual thing here. And it's why we keep saying, it's your dues, your choice, mynewsmychoice.org. Go to that website. You don't have to fund this nonsense. You can stop funding it. That's your right. And then we won't have to worry about how Randy Weingarten spends her own money.
Yes. Join our team instead, not Randy's. Fund teachers, not Randy. And so last thing, one more story. I had to bring it up because I was published for the first time, drum roll please, in the Washington Post. They accepted an article from me. We'll take it. It'll be in print tomorrow, but I just did something very simple. There's a bill by this guy in the middle of the screen. His name's Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona. He has a bill to repeal President Trump's nationwide school choice program, even though 31 states have already opted in, including 2 Democrat governors, New York and Colorado, saying, let's do this. Well, I did some quick digging and saw that he sent his own kid to a private school. School choice for me, but not for thee. I went a little deeper because that bill of his, it has 34 total co-sponsors on it, including himself. And I found pretty quickly, mostly with publicly available information, all this, is that 19 of them either went to private school themselves or sent their kids to private school, or both. So the majority, 56% or so, of these senators, at least from what we can tell from the publicly available information, at least most of them, at least 55%, are school choice hypocrites. And I don't blame them for making that choice, but they shouldn't fight against educational opportunities for others. They shouldn't pull the ladder up from behind themselves.
Yeah, look, after the Graham Plattner incident that we've all had to live through the last few months, there is no level of hypocrisy that could probably shock us anymore. I mean, that was as bad as it gets. But let's face the reality here. This guy right in the middle, Mark Kelly, he's doing this because in his home state of Arizona, there's a battle going on right now to take away freedom from kids. The far left union is doing this. They want to take away, not just not provide it, but actually take away a freedom that children already have. And he probably realizes, hey, I could get into a I could be challenged in a primary from the left, and I want to go as far left and crazy as I can possibly go. And so that's why he's doing this. It's really an embarrassment. This guy used to be a patriot, used to be an astronaut, somebody that people could look up to. He's now just another part of the radical left abyss that you find all across this country, particularly in Washington, D.C. He's making a mockery of himself. It's shameful that, as you said, he's a hypocrite on this issue, but that's probably the least of the concerns we should have from Mr. Kelly.
Right. And I'd say the other biggest hypocrite here, he's the main co-sponsor. He's the main sponsor of the bill. So he takes the cake. But also Elizabeth Warren, I caught her in 2019. She was on video telling a black mom that the black mom just said, I just want the same choice you had. I read somewhere that you sent your kid to private school. Elizabeth Warren hadn't seen my article or Twitter post apparently at the time. Or maybe she just didn't know she was being recorded on video, but she said, no, I sent my kids to public school. She lied. Pocahontas added another lie to her list. I mean, she takes the cake. That was from 2019. That was probably the first time one of my tweets went viral. Yeah. I had found that her son, who's now like 50 years old or older, had gone to a private school in Austin and also one in Pennsylvania as well.
What I don't understand is, look, I got lots of friends in Massachusetts and in Arizona. Really good people live in those states. Good people live in every state. Even if you don't politically agree with me or anybody else, I mean, come on, guys, can you find somebody better than these people? They're so blatantly dishonest. I mean, I think about Maine, and I've been to Maine a few times, and they're lovely people. They're like, surely you got somebody better than this Plattner guy. I mean, he's gone, but wow, is that the best you can do? I mean,
now they're pulling the Kamala Harris swaparoo. Once Joe Biden was clear he wasn't going to win, put in Kamala Harris. Graham Plattner. Well, there was a bunch of stories about Graham Plattner before, yesterday when he actually, dropped out of the race. It's like, well, why wasn't it bad enough before?
But Corey, it's interesting because you hear it constantly, democracy. And I'm not going to get into this because we don't live in a democracy. We'll save that for another day. But even if you do believe that, Hillary Clinton didn't even legitimately win the primary against Bernie Sanders. She didn't get the most votes, so there was no democracy there. And then Joe Biden is the nominee, and he's ushered out, and they just put in somebody else who didn't get any votes at all. And then now you're seeing the same thing in Maine. Like, for those who keep crying about democracy, you sure don't seem to believe it when you believe your candidate might lose.
That's exactly right. It sounds like a threat to democracy to me. But with that, we are running up on time. One last reminder, everybody. Check out at the beginning of this episode, where do your dues go? This is a new initiative launched by Americans for Fair Treatment. We started with Pennsylvania. The unions are not spending the money on the teachers or their members. So see where the money's going, see how much their administrators and top staffers are making. PSEA treasurer making $366,000 a year, according to the latest data. It's probably higher now. And if you want to leave your public sector union, there's a better way. You can join us. Go to myduesmychoice.org.
Thanks, Corey.
And until next time, thanks, Chip, for the co-hosting, and thanks, Americans for Fair Treatment. myduesmychoice.org. And thank you all for watching. And thanks again to Norton Rainey, our special guest from ACE Scholarships. Until next time, see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.